A huge crowd gathered in the rain Friday to mark an ominous day in American history. They stood outside the Memphis motel where 40 years ago, Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. Do you remember that day?
Not really. I don't know if I went into shock. I mean, my siblings always tell me stories about what took place and do you remember this? And I'm saying, no, I don't. I should have remembered some things at age 5, but I just didn't.
Bernice King is the youngest of Martin Luther King Jr.'s 4 children. She was 5 years old when her father was assassinated. This Pulitzer Prize-winning photograph shows Bernice on her mother's lap during his funeral.
I kind of wish I could go back and redo the whole story, you know, remove the assassination and restore a home, a family.
Bernice says her father was haunted by the possibility of being assassinated.
I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
Especially after the murder of President John F. Kennedy.
He remarked to my mother, because they were watching it on television, and he said, you know, that's what's going to happen to me.
This is where it all started, Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, Georgia. Dr. King delivered some of his most influential sermons on civil rights from this church. And after his assassination, this is where King was brought for a final goodbye.
I mean, there were throngs of people.
Just packed the streets?
I mean, there was 150,000 people here that day.
I have a dream today.
That, of course, was Dr. King's landmark speech. And on the 40th anniversary of his death, his dream is very much alive as Senator Barack Obama vies to become America's first black president.
Through his faith, his courage, and his wisdom, Dr. Martin Luther King moved an entire nation.
America may be on the verge of electing its first black president. What might your father say about that possibility?
I think he would say that the work that they did during the 50s and 60s really laid an important foundation for this happening. This is part of the beginning of fulfilling the dream.
This man has no arms or legs, but watch what he can do. Nick Vujicic is absolutely unstoppable, which happens to be the title of his brand new book. Look at how he autographed a copy for us.
I challenge people to turn your obstacles into opportunities.
Nick wasn't always so optimistic. He was born without limbs and suffered endless teasing at school.
When I was going to mainstream school, I was actually the first special needs child to be integrated into the mainstream school system of Australia. I was the only one in a wheelchair, feeling like, oh my gosh, look at me, I'm the only one. I had a couple good friends along the way, but bullying and teasing was prevalent in my life, and I would come home crying, and sometimes actually at lunch times, hiding myself in the garden because it just became unbearable sometimes. At age 8, I told my mum I wanted to commit suicide. She said, why? I said, well, what? What's there to look forward to? And I felt in my life I'm just a burden to my parents, I'm not going to get married, not going to have a job, and I'm going to be teased for the rest of my life. I couldn't see hope.
But all that is behind him. Today, Nick is a motivational speaker and happily married.
Our eyes connected and it was fireworks from day one. We all make mistakes, but we're not a mistake. To know that we are all invaluable human beings, every single one of us. There's not another you, there's not another me. And it breaks my heart seeing teenagers drifting with no direction or no purpose. They have arms and legs, but they're not happy, they're not satisfied. I wish I was taller, I wish I was shorter, I wish I had money, drugs, sex, alcohol, pornography, fame, fortune. Not just in teenagers, but people who are 40 and 50 still haven't found peace. And I have. I want people to know that we all can find it. I want people to never give up. I want people to not put limits on what they can achieve. But even if our dreams don't come true, I want people to know, us men, you know, we like to be the provider of the home. Many have lost their jobs. Many of them have got a career change and they don't feel as valuable as they used to be as the big provider. No, my wife needs a good man more than a good provider. And that's what I want people to know. It's who you are that matters most. On Nick Vujicic's funeral, it's not going to be about, oh, he met 7 presidents, 5 congresses, he spoke at, and millions of people have seen him and all that. Who was Nick? And why was that important? Who you are today matters most. And I really want to start a movement as much as I can. I know many people have gone before me here in this country to bring up awareness of bullying and anti-bullying. But I want to do my part back in this nation. As a green card holder, 1 million people commit suicide in the world, 1 every 40 seconds. I nearly did. But look what happened when I gave my broken pieces a chance.
It was a defining moment for South Africa and for Nelson Mandela, a rugby game in 1995 that united the nation. The incredible story was brought to the big screen by actors Morgan Freeman and Matt Damon in the critically acclaimed movie Invictus. Here is the real story.
This is how Hollywood portrayed one of the greatest moments in Nelson Mandela's extraordinary life.
I want to thank you for what you have done for our country.
No, Mr. President. Thank you for what you have done for our country.
The 2009 Clint Eastwood movie is Invictus, starring Morgan Freeman as Mandela and Matt Damon as the captain of South Africa's rugby team that unified a nation.
Brothers, sisters, this is the time to build our nation. All of the whites are cheering for South Africa. All of the blacks are cheering for England. How long before the World Cup?
Don't get your hopes up. We're a damn disgrace.
I've been invited to tea.
With who?
The President.
Tell me, Francois, how do we inspire ourselves to greatness when nothing less will do? How do we inspire everyone around us?
It was a great moment of national unity, of national togetherness, which Mandela just quite magically brought about.
John Carlin wrote the book the movie Invictus is based on. He interviewed Mandela 3 times about the momentous rugby game when South Africa won the World Cup in 1995. South Africa was divided between blacks and whites, and Mandela had been the democratically elected president for just a year.
He was just quite brilliant in using the emotions of sport to reach people's hearts.
Mandela decided to unite his country through rugby, a sport beloved by whites and despised by blacks who considered the team a symbol of arrogant white rule. When Mandela walked onto the field at the World Cup final to support the mostly white team, the entire nation went wild. And when the South African team upset heavily favored New Zealand, both whites and blacks were bonded together. Here is the actual moment when Mandela congratulated the South African captain. And here is what it looked like in the movie.
And you talk to any South African today and they will remember exactly where they were when that game took place. And because it was much, much more than a game.
Morgan Freeman was handpicked by Mandela to play him in Invictus and released a statement calling him a hero to all who treasure liberty, freedom, and the dignity of mankind. And the moment he united a nation will never be forgotten. "34-year-old Victoria Murden of Louisville, Kentucky, embodies an all-American spirit of adventure. But with her video camera rolling, her quest to push the limits of her own endurance nearly killed her.
I've been thirsty and I've been hungry, and God knows I'm scared.
Normally, Tori is accustomed to racing on calmer waters. But in October 1997, she was approached by Sector, an Italian company known for its extreme no-limits competition. The challenge, to be the first woman to row solo across an ocean.
The proposition was intimidating. To row the North Atlantic, going west to east, is no cakewalk.
On June 14th, Tori Murden took the first strokes in a 3,600-mile odyssey from North Carolina to France aboard a 23-foot boat she named the American Pearl.
I knew that, okay, in the next 3 months, it's just me in this boat on this wide, wide piece of water. That is my dessert for the evening.
Tori packed 120 freeze-dried meals, and a solar-powered desalinator provided fresh water. At the end of 58 days, Tori had rowed more than halfway across the Atlantic. But of all the obstacles she faced, none proved more menacing than the fury of the sea.
And I'd been through some pretty heavy storms and capsized 3 times. I'll take my word for it, these waves are just a little too big.
When Tori did capsize, the American Pearl was designed to right itself, and though terrified, her waterproof cabin kept her safe.
Big wave would come over the top, and it would spin the boat. And then I'd be upside down for a couple of seconds, and the boat would rock, and then it would eventually roll back upright.
I'm outside and I'm alive! For inspiration, Tori kept a piece of home close by.
That little flag on that boat took such a beating, and it was so comforting to look out on deck in the morning and see that flag still there.
But the weather steadily worsened, and while we breathed a sigh of relief as Hurricane Danielle passed by the East Coast on September 5th, Tori was brutally engulfed by the storm.
6:30 a.m. I'm definitely in something big and bad and ugly.
30-foot waves slammed into Tori's boat, tossing her like a rag doll.
Mash into the boat, and there would be this chaos that would ensue, the boat turning and things flying around the cabin. And last capsize, I took the rib off the top of my ceiling with my back. I was absolutely sure that I was not going to live through the storm. I was absolutely convinced that my life was over. I'm going to live or I'm going to die on the whim of nature. And that's that, huh?
Frightened, Tori uttered what she thought may have been her last words.
Go ahead and chase your dreams. I mean, they don't always work out right, but go ahead and chase your dreams. You got to do it.
Though fear was evident in her eyes and in her voice, Tori resisted activating her distress beacon.
And I thought, I can't ask another human being to come out into this storm and get me. I've lost track of the number of capsizes.
But after 11 capsizes in 12 hours and a severe shoulder injury, Tori signaled for help.
I was so badly beaten that, I didn't think I could make it through another storm.
The container ship Independent Spirit, en route to Philadelphia, came to her rescue and plucked her from the churning seas, some 900 miles from France.
I was fighting back tears because I thought, this is the wrong shore and this is the wrong boat.
But the folks in Philadelphia gave Tori a hero's welcome.
And I was dumbfounded because in my mind I had failed to do what I had set out to do. We all face oceans. We all run into those big waves. We all hit storms. And it doesn't seem like you're going to make it through. You will.